entry-level luxury cars. They're objects of desire for one and all. 4. These cars are an entry ticket into the world of success, prestige, and good fortune. 4. In a country like India, where cars are taxed as sin goods, buying a luxury car can feel like stabbing yourself in the stomach with those overbearing taxes. And that's where this segment of attractive entry-level luxury cars steps in. This attractive range of luxury cars provides an economical and affordable way to driving a car with an alluring badge. Now within this segment, it's the BMW X1 and the Mercedes-Benz CLA that have done very well for themselves. And now it's BMW's turn to finally enter the entry-level luxury sedan segment with this, the brand new 2 Series. Now when it comes to the 2 Series, well, it has those unmistakable BMW design cues, starting with a big and bold kidney grille. Even the headlight design is very traditional BMW. Now when you look at the side profile of this car, you realize that it's a little bit more than a sedan. It is, after all, a grand coupe. Now the benefit of this is that the coupe-like roofline gives you a little bit more headroom inside the rear cabin of this car. And when you move around to the rear of the car, well, you realize that it has a set of very unique tail lamps that tend to stretch into the center of the car. Even that rear windscreen, it looks very unique. So overall, the rear profile of this car is unmistakable, and it'll always stand out as a 2 Series. Now when you step into the cabin of the 2 Series, you instantly realize that this is a baby BMW. Now what I really like is that it's a very familiar territory. So it's as if you've taken a BMW interior and shrunk it to 70%. So it's all very familiar, very comfortable place to be. But what I especially like in here is that these modern BMWs, they don't overdo it on the technology front. Now, as a modern BMW, it has all the features that you can expect from it. It's got connected car tech, it's got gesture controls, it's got a huge panoramic sunroof, so it's got it all. But it does it in a very subtle and subdued manner. So you have a digital instrument cluster for the driver, so you can change that display. There's a whole lot of information that you get from there. The infotainment screen as well, very sleek, very clear to read. The climate control display looks very contemporary as well. But BMW, crucially, has not touched the essential controls. So as a driver, for you, it's very easy to control these manual HVAC controls. You get your iDrive controller over here. So you have all the right buttons and knobs at the right places to adjust everything on the go. It's not confusing, there's no moving touchscreen, none of that. So overall, I really like that appeal of this car. Of course, if you want to go high-tech, you can always use gesture controls to not just alter your stereo, but even change climate control settings. Very impressive. But as a baby BMW, as a compact luxury car, how does it feel as a comfortable tourer for rear seat passengers? Well, let's hop in the rear seat and see just how much space or lack of it there is. Alright, now that I've stepped into the rear seat, well, I have to say that ingress-egress feels a little more comfortable in the rear seat than in the front. But nonetheless, I have just about adequate space here. Just about. And I am 5'8" tall. So over here, I have just about adequate under thigh support. I have just about enough leg room. I've stored my feet under the front seat, which is why I have just about adequate space. The panoramic sunroof is what lends a little bit of an airy appeal to the cabin. But otherwise, the side windows are small. So overall, you can feel a sense that this is a small car. It's a compact cabin. But seated where I am, I think I am adequately comfortable, not just for city journeys, but even long distance journeys shouldn't be too uncomfortable over here. The hip point is nice, it's not too low. So overall, it's fairly comfortable right now. But you see, a lot of BMW drivers like to sit nice and low in the car, which is why we're going to try out something. I have my colleague Shivank here with me today, and he's going to step into the driver's seat and put this seat into the lowest position. And then we're going to see where we are in terms of comfort. All right, Shivang, is that your driving position now? Are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Oh man, okay. So right now what's happened is that the seat's gone all the way down and I've had to withdraw my feet from under the driver's seat. So having pulled them out, now I'm not so comfortable anymore because I have more of a knees up experience now and I'm lacking on thigh support as well. So this isn't a comfortable position to be in, which is why your driver there, or your friend in this case, they'll have to raise their driving position so that rear seat occupants are more comfortable. Now back here, this is strictly a 4-seater car, simply because this transmission tunnel here is pretty high. Also, this rear seat for the middle passenger is pretty narrow, so it's not a comfortable place at all. Even for children, this isn't an ideal place. Now having said that, the 2 Series, I believe, is still a practical enough luxury car for not just your city use, but even long distance travel. If you want to do a short getaway, well, you can do that very easily, provided the driver sits in a higher seating position. Well, there's enough space for 4 adults in the cabin. The boot space here is over 400 liters, so that's very practical as well. It's got a big boot. And in terms of ground clearance as well, I personally feel that it has a very usable ground clearance. You can clear speed breakers very easily without having to cringe about thinking of rubbing that underbelly. But one factor keeps running in my mind. You see, this car has a space saver under the false boot floor, which is perfectly fine. But you see, if you have a flat and you need to take your original tire and put it in the back, well, now you have a boot full of luggage, a cabin full of passengers, so that's technically not possible. But that's just me being overly cautious. You see, this is the era of tubeless tires and tire inflators, so I think you're covered there. So the 2 Series for India, when it's launched, will be offered with a single powertrain option, which is the mainstay for BMW in India. It's 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine. Now, like in cars such as the X1 and 3 Series, the same engine here develops an identical 187 bhp of max power and 400 Newton meters of peak torque. And like in the other cars, the gearbox is absolutely faultless in this car. Now, right from the get-go, whichever driving mode you're in, acceleration is always very linear, it's very progressive, and it's a very comfortable car to drive in general when you're talking about power delivery and gear changes. Now, when you accelerate a bit harder, it becomes fairly evident that there is a diesel engine under the bonnet. But the noise is never too intrusive unless you're really pushing it hard. Now, this engine revs freely and goes past the 4000 RPM mark comfortably. It's only past 4500 RPM when it starts getting strained. In terms of everyday driving, I think this is a very, very comfortable car to be driving if you're driving in town and you're suited to a leisurely driving pace. But should you choose to drive quicker, well, you can always put the engine in sport mode and the gearbox in sport mode as well. That's when you get optimal performance from this engine. To give you some perspective, this car will do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 7.5 seconds. That's fairly impressive. And the top speed is pegged at 233 kilometers an hour. So by no means is this a slow car. Sure, it's a baby Beamer, but it's still got the poke. Now, what I especially like is that as the 2 Series is a smaller car than a 3 Series, it's nice and compact and it's also lighter. So, you can feel that difference. The car feels fairly sprightly and it feels fairly agile for our roads. Otherwise, well, these small BMWs are now built on the company's UKL platform. This is essentially the front-wheel drive platform for BMW. It's designed to make more economical cars for entry-level segments such as this one. But it's not just economical in terms of its construction. A front-wheel drive car also consumes less fuel. So on that account, many agree that this was the correct path for BMW to go down. Of course, BMW purists will disagree. And well, when it comes to that, I have to agree with the enthusiast as well. Because you see, front-wheel drive cars are never dynamically as fun as rear-wheel drive cars. But that aside, when it comes to the 2 Series like the X1, I have to say that the issue of torque steer is very, very prevalent. The moment you go heavy on the throttle from a standstill as well, you can hear the tires struggle for grip, and there's a fair amount of torque steer as the wheel tugs at your arms. Now, of course, this is something that not everybody is going to do. Not everybody does standing starts or aggressive launches. But this aside, supposing you're driving sport mode or even regular comfort mode, and you want to pull out of a lane and pull off a quick overtaking maneuver, that's when the 2 Series, again, when you suddenly mash the pedal, there's that torque steer which becomes very evident. So this torque steer actually becomes quite annoying and quite disturbing, to be frank. And people who are not interested in cars or driving, so if you buy one of these or get into one for driving, you will face this issue of torque steer. So you have to be well aware of the fact. So like I said, when you suddenly mash the long pedal and go for a quick overtake, the wheel will tug and you'll have to wrestle it with your arms to keep the car in a straight line. So this is still a bit of an issue. That aside, well, handling is fairly good. It's a low slung car. And in fact, the suspension setup is actually quite good as well. Now, when it comes to slow speeds at around 20 kilometers an hour, that's when you can feel that underlying firmness, and the ride can feel a little bit bumpy. But in realistic speeds, when you're doing about 40-50 kilometers an hour, the suspension does very well in ironing out those kind of bumps. And even at faster speeds, I think it's fairly comfortable. Despite the fact that this car is running on run-flat tires, the ride is fairly good. And overall, I can say that no matter what kind of road you throw at it, it's going to be a fairly comfortable ride for you. Now, the ride is not as pliant and as comfortable as the new 3 Series. That's just very, very impressive. But when it comes to the 2 Series' ride comfort, well, you're not going to really be complaining at all either. The steering wheel, well, it could have done with better feedback. But in the age of electronic power steering systems, well, this is a given. So overall, well, high-speed stability is very good. The car has fairly brisk pace, it has compact dimensions. So on that account, it can actually be quite a fun car to drive. But if you leave aside the fun factor, if you leave aside the BMW-ness of it all, I think you can look at this car as a great daily driver, a great luxury car that you can buy and you can drive every day. It's very, very comfortable. And for me personally, when it comes to the appeal of these types of cars, I would prefer a sedan any day over a crossover SUV. And I really hope that the 2 Series really picks up and it does very well in the market. And I would go so far as to say that this is not just a car that's very comfortable for urban driving, but you can even dare to go out on long road trips. I think it's going to be very comfortable. It's got just the right amount of cabin space for 4 occupants. It's got a decently sized boot. So overall, the 2 Series checks out on all the basic parameters, and I think it's got a decent amount of appeal as well. So if you're looking to step up your game in the world of car ownership this festive season, well, you can take a good look at the new 2 Series. Now, by the time you watch this video, the 2 Series would have been officially launched in India. It's going to be launched in 2 variants, the 220D Sportline and this, the 220D M Sport. Now, the M Sport kit brings with it some very nice subtle detailing, such as those side skirts, the rear air diffuser, and those tasteful M alloy wheels. Now, of course, since you're watching this video at the time of its launch, you would know its prices, and you can check them out in the link below. What do I feel about the market prospects for the 2 Series? Well, I think it's a great proposition for those looking to step into the world of luxury cars. It's got presence, it's got the right kind of styling that attracts attention, and it's unmistakably BMW. At the same time, it's also unmistakably new. So it's definitely going to stand out. But a car such as this also has to perform the task of being a daily driver. And on that front, I think the 2 Series is a great proposition. It's very comfortable to drive, even in tight urban environments. Thanks to its compact size, it's a very easy car to navigate through our busy streets. The suspension is fairly comfortable too. There's just the right amount of in-cabin space. It's got a big boot for your shopping trips. So overall, I think the 2 Series is not just an attractive luxury car, it's also a very practical one.